Incremental greetings. So basically, as a completionist user of SuperMemo now, I will react to my old self milestones. Okay, so this one doesn't have that many views, only 347. If you compare, the 1 year milestone had more than 1,000. That didn't refresh, by the way. Yeah, here you go. It's just slightly more longer, not that much, 3 minutes. It's almost the same background, the same thumbnail, almost the same title. So I wonder why one was recommended so much and the other didn't pick up the algorithm. If it was very similar. And the metadata was the same. At least what I see is that it got a lot fewer views, but more comments. Look at that. Oh, I don't recognize anyone recently. Now I can already see, oh my god, I don't even remember that. The PhD. I was still didn't give up the PhD there. From Anki, from about 1,000, I have 2,000. Okay. Hey there, welcome to Vocab Meaning with SuperMemo. So today, more or less, I have been using SuperMemo for about 2 months now. So, and last recap was last month. Yep. So, what are we doing today? It's just outlining some things worth discussing. So, first is I was trying to do to show the stats, and I just pressed F5. Okay, good to know. At least I automated some stuff that I didn't need to think, oh, that doesn't work, boom. Let me use a workaround, that is to apply the warrior. Yeah, 63, okay, yeah. 1,000 items, 16, okay. 94, so I decreased a little the retention rate. The outage time was quicker here, much quicker. Only 5 seconds and a half. And only 2,700 repetitions. And once again, I'm loading a backup. Okay. That I'm not using this computer for SuperMemo, so I just copied my collection here. So first, and I still didn't have a proper root element, like a do that says incremental ratings, It's just plain SuperMemo 18. I think I have because it was the ABC collection. Let me talk briefly about stats. I don't have chapters. I do? Oh, I do, okay. Because later on I just did visually the chapters, even if the YouTube video doesn't have them. Good to know. Legend vocab items, that explains the higher forgetting index, average. Some stats, priorities. I'm not using the final drill, newly created templates, collection size, and final thoughts. Okay. So as you can see, the retention, it's more or less. You can see I forget everything. So even if I have spent time, and I did this myself, I have done so many videos that I don't even remember creating those chapters at all. Yes, there, 94%. It's not 95, but it's pretty good actually. And the thing is, a lot more than what I was getting in Anki, with fewer repetitions already. So even here, even if it's rather precautious, could we say, to see the full potential of SuperMemo, I was already overperforming my Anki self. Imagine this. Absolutely crazy. That I have been using SuperMemo last time this month because I'm extremely busy. So more or less all my free time comes to SuperMemo, more or less. That was October. Yeah, so I was with the PhD still, and that was after the lockdown. Was the year of the lockdown, I think. Okay. Yeah, it's too private for now. It doesn't relate to what I will say, so The point, yeah. What they say when I say I was really busy, I really mean it. So it's I had the free time. And you can compare this as before. But the thing is consistency. I use it every day, but not for the sake of. Yeah, and that's good. So sometimes it's 2 hours, even though it doesn't feel like 2 hours. Half an hour, 20, 11, 20, and so even if it looks tiny, it's still decent. Half an hour is quite a lot. The key is consistency. Yeah, you don't get most or as much as before as the last month, just based on quantity, but the quality is about the same, or even more, because then I concentrate with higher priority content. So what I do is the pretty protection is still covered for items, but for topics you can see now it's very low. And if I won't do this, that I don't prioritize topics, items over topics, I will have lower priority protection, and that's it. So the quality of the session will be higher because of the shorter duration. It doesn't make sense. That's why this is key. If what you do is 3 hours here, nothing, 2 hours, nothing, 1 hour, nothing, 3 hours, nothing, 1 hour, so that by average is the same time spent, it's a lot worse. It's more massed practice than incrementalism. That's why even if you only have 10 minutes, it's better to spend 10 minutes today and 40 tomorrow than just 1 hour tomorrow. Keeping the streak is because I do want to use it every single day. That's a key factor. So one thing I noticed right away is that one new thing in SuperMemo is that when you create a topic, I mean an item. Do you see I still was not that versed with layouts? Because the Warrior doesn't contain the contents window. So what that I did is create multiple layouts so I can transition. Now you can see one of my templates, because I want to keep more or less the philosophy that I had in Anki, but the CSS doesn't work the same. So I had the color of meaning. When I ask for a meaning in language, or I give the meaning and I want to recall it, I use yellow. But the text is yellow, not the background. So this is true for most of what I did. So it's more friendly in SuperMemo. Because then the color contrast is crap, I cannot do a lot of things that I could do in Anki. So to simplify, I simplified, and the text is always the same color. I never modify the color of the text. You won't be seeing it until next day. So the first interval is at least a day. Yep. And I'm very extremely used in Anki to have small steps for language learning. For language learning specifically, not incremental reading, that's a very important detail to keep in mind. So basically, the learning steps that I think by default you have 1 and 10. Now I'm not sure with it's been so long that I don't use the default. And with FSRS and so on, I don't know the defaults, but I still know that you get like minute intervals. You don't go directly to a day or a few days. In SuperMemo you do. And the algorithm doesn't differentiate. Is this for incremental reading or is language learning? It assesses the difficulty based on the context or the concept group or whatever. Most of the time what will happen? That if you do some language learning in your collection, the starting intervals will be very high. Something that you can afford with incremental reading because it's more semantic, makes sense. You do the reasoning, you can afford higher intervals. But for language, and especially phrasal verbs, unless you over rely on mnemonics, you could not afford a static interval of 2 weeks or whatever. Do you see here? 15 days with 5 repetitions already because I lapsed it already. So that's what I noticed. That's why then I said, oh no, let me use a different collection. So I optimize, the algorithm optimized for a different performance. And once this is over, I can merge again and stuff like this. Yes, you can also fine tune the individually by item the desired forgetting index, which I did, but it's not enough. Or the quantity of repetitions you do in a collection will have to be very even. If you have a lot of language learning that takes over the incremental reading, repetition-wise, that I do 50,000 repetitions of English and only 1,000 of incremental reading, it's way too uneven, and the language take over. The how you call it? The averages and so on. Here I was just 2 months in, and I think I was just 1 month or so in with those things. What I mean by this, language learning that started in SuperMemo, that doesn't come from Anki anymore. And what I do for now is that I have an English concept, then I specialized only by folders. Oh, that's the meaning. But this comes from somewhere else. What I did later is that I don't care. See, this is in incremental reading. I don't do it in a different place in the knowledge tree. I leave it there, but I have conventions, written conventions in the question. So I don't even need a template. And I know that's a language item, even if they are all over the knowledge tree. I started like this, but then I realized it was too much effort, to no benefit. Yeah, you can do the subset super quickly by the branch. Yeah, but since I use the convention via search and then subset review, I get the same place. And I don't spend time changing the concept or just moving it manually. This is what I was doing back then. Why? I know that. Because here it says no group. So I didn't use the hook of English. Not because it's meaning it's a folder, because it's a child. So something I did later is that I use the hook, but the root is a child. So even if I use English, it doesn't become a child of English, but one of the children, like meanings. I did this, and this is possible. That's why for me, out of context, it's not enough to discard this possibility. Which then, this makes sense because, yeah, I have 25. So, to simplify, if I started after a month, that means that it's not even one per day. And sometimes are the same. So one is the sound. Sorry. Everything here is the meaning, but sometimes I have the definition. An example, I need the spelling. Sometimes is the noun, and I have to recall what it means or something like that. Do you see that now I have here N for noun, V for verb, adjective? I was doing the position part of a speech. That was very premature, very at the beginning. Later I have a full-fledged convention for language. It's very comprehensive. And it's always at the beginning. So when I read, we will see this later, because it's in the milestone videos, that it's all the characters at the beginning, and with those sequence, which the order is also with conventions, I know everything. Hey, this item is for language, should be this template or this kind of exercise. It's a sentence item, it's a vocabulary item, blah blah blah. And then what I'm asking for? I'm asking for filling the sentence, or I have a word within a sentence, like in this case, and I have to recall the meaning within the context. So it's passive, or it's blanked, and instead of the verb or the key expression, I have the definition. So I have to actively recall the precise word, and in case it's a verb, I need to conjugate it as well, and stuff like this. And everything you could imagine. The register, if it's colloquial, if it's formal, and everything, and the grammar. So everything I have conventions with symbols, and it's always extremely precise. I want to spend time with this, so you take note, mental note here, and you can compare with, I think, 1 year and a half at least, which is already more robust. So I have 1 minute, or the default is 1 and 10 minutes, but I have custom steps for. Spoiler alert, I don't do this anymore. That's not the best flashcard you can do at all. 7 minutes, 15 minutes, half an hour, 5 hours, and so on. And then it's a day. So the thing is that here I only have straight away 1 day. So one time I created a bunch of. One of the difference that the other video had captions, this didn't. Perhaps this contributed to more views. Because I really noticed that I have to pay more attention than usual. Because now when I record videos, hearing myself, so I'm extremely used to my mistakes and bad pronunciation and accent, maybe. Here I have trouble. I have to pay more attention than usual. Cards, of words. And the point is that I forgot almost everyone. Yeah, you can see what I meant is that I lapsed at least once every single item in the English, at least in the meanings. You can know that visually now by the number in parentheses. This is one of the worst, by the way. 13. Wait a second. Wait a second, because I think that it may hold the record. 13 lapses. In this vocab I have everything, so I have the language learning as well, so it's the best case scenario. Here you have a preview of what I meant by my convention with characters. Okay, I will sort by lapses. 11. So then I don't have this item anymore, the one you see in the video. I may have it, but in a different starting over. So my worst it's 11. I have some about 9, some about 8, 7, 6, up to 6. The 50. Okay. Whatever. And there's something for a reason. Not the point of this video for now, but this is a semantic. I memorized that this is this name, and that's about it. That's why it's so inconnex, it makes it harder to remember. The same here. I don't know Greek, and turns out I don't know the roots, because I know some roots, right? So I learned this how? Semantically. Here the same. The opposite direction, but the same thing. And here is the date. The date that is not that meaningful, because it's when it was published, when it was open sourced. With the precision of a day, and I used a mnemonic. That's why I lapsed up to 8 times. So you get the pattern, right? So 13, oh my god. Imagine, in just 2 months, I was able to lapse 13 times this item. That means that it are consecutive. So I lapse, this has a new interval, a post-lapse interval, and I lapse once again, consecutively. It will have, if it's every day, 13 days, if it's every other day, 26 days, which will be about the maximum, which I could afford in this milestone. Why? Because it's just a formal definition and it's not my definition. I just copy paste. Perhaps I made it a little shorter. But if I see this, a written word dealing with formal and systematically with a subject, yeah, treaty, but it's not the only one. They are very similar words, right? So what I will have done later, which by the way, that doesn't help. The etymology here doesn't help much at all. I had this in the answer field. So what they do in these cases is that I have a sentence used, and then I have to recall the name still is active, but this is what they call a sentence item, not vocabulary. That's one of the examples that is not that I have better memory than you, or this guy has a better memory than me, or whatever. Most of the time, it's how you learn, how you do the flashcards, how you encode it. Those are the soft skills that make the difference. You can have the best algorithm. In this case, I had SM18, a lot better than the SuperMemo, than the Anki flavor of SM2. Because I used Anki before FSRS for many years, more than a decade before. So even if I had a better algorithm, this was still a failure. So I didn't do the repetitions after a few minutes every time. It was at least one day, but you see, I'm on a is hell kind of thing. And that's because I said, doesn't make sense to do sentence items in SuperMemo. I had like this mindset that, no, it's for incremental reading, it doesn't make sense here. And then I realized, wait, based on this evidence, I only have one phonetic reading, so that was still an article, 25 meanings, and that's about it. This was enough to realize, okay, yeah, then let me do full-fledged sentences. And that is when I had to adapt my approach, because I was relying on Anki multiple fields that in SuperMemo doesn't work. You can have multiple components, but doesn't work in the sense of you don't inherit this. You cannot put, hey, this card type will have this at the front, this at the back side, and this creates different cards because you have different card types. And SuperMemo doesn't work this way. And if you want to do this manually, it's an absolute pain. So what I did, hey, let me put everything in plain text. That's why I have some conventions that you have seen in the yeah, let me cancel here. Okay.
Pulchritude. Adjourn.
Not the best example because this comes from the Advanced English collection. I don't do this. Okay. That is the first example I got. So I'm telling, hey, this is a sentence, so it's a sentence item. Don't take this as a clausolation in incremental reading. Then it's about English language, because I have other languages. This is the starting of the example sentence. So don't take this literally, take this as an example sentence. And it finishes here. And that's a clausolation. And then the clausolation, sometimes it's like here already. That's how I do it now. But here I have it before. So it will be like this. And then this is plain text, what it did. Now I don't have the AutoHotkey script. I have this automated with AutoHotkey. Here you go. So I use the color to just see the clausolation. In this case it's black. And it's like you could interpret as one card inside the other. So I could just have one flashcard that says adjective, that means greater than usual level or amount. That's it. And at the same time, I have the boundary, so I have the example sentence on itself. It just makes sense. I could just have what you see in black and that's it. It will be like the example in the video. It will be like this. Noun. I read no. It would have been better to see the precise element, but I have that deleted. And whilst reading, I already know what it is. Until it tells me adjective with equals mean with the same meaning or meaning equal to greater da 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 da. Oh, sorry. And I have this in example sentence. This is, I think, still from the Advanced English collection. Could be. Oh, there's an audio. This is the very simple one. Here I can have many modifiers, here at the beginning, or here at the resolution. If what they say, I don't put any description. I say, hey, it's the same as soaring, but more colloquial. Or it's this, but in plural, because the plural is irregular. So I don't have to provide the description necessarily. So all of these, there are many examples. We will go. If you want more information, wait for the mastery course of the Professional Guide to SuperMemo until I do the language learning. But basically, the point of this video now is that that's a very crude, and I started doing conventions incrementally to have everything properly systematic. Why? Because it's SuperMemo, I cannot rely on templates at this degree. I don't have that inheritance of node to card. So everything is hard-coded of one character. Everything is mapped to one just character, so I can search for that. And it's always in the precise order, because if I want, I don't know, irregular plural nouns, I can search for that. Because if I put my convention, but it's not consecutive, there's another symbol in the middle, I cannot use regex. That's why I'm so strict with the author. You will see later with my own reaction. 13 lapses and 16 lapses. Oh, it's even worse. It's ridiculous. It's so awful. And then it done. Exactly, here you go. By the way, I did this on purpose. So, because keep in mind, here I had years of experience. That, hey, let me see how the SuperMemo algorithm will have an effect. So here, I have two flashcards into one. On the surface or from the outside, which kind of is very close, and it's quite vague. On the surface, an adjective on the surface, and it's awkwardly. No, it's not superficially or whatever like this. It's not the best flashcard, and still on that I provide two. Keep in mind this is on the back side, because now I just click on the knowledge tree. You cannot see what is mapped on the question on the answer. And I verified with just 25. Genuine. So I created them when I spot the need. So those have been done in different days based on what I have read in the incremental reading, and the performance was like this. Was super crap. So the other one with 16 is again deleted because this is so low quality that I don't want this. This is trash. It's absolute trash. And then I did proper flashcards with sentences. And it depends on the question, it depends on the specific aspect, multiple. You can see here, the title is already different. Oh yeah, this already tells me a lot because the title is not the same as the content. Oh wait, that's the first. Here is getting the text from here. The answer field. Well, not the answer because I have the spelling template. but the field, a field that is shown on the answer. Ridiculous. It's so awful. And then, well, not always, because here's not the case. Yeah, it's all over the place. I think I was not familiar enough with how the title works in SuperMemo, and perhaps I was overwriting manually. I don't know. I don't remember this detail. Then that's one of the cases that I know, because SuperMemo is still new in my collection. Is that SuperMemo recommends huge, tremendous intervals. So with just 3 repetitions, I am above 100 days. Exactly. But my collection is 2 months, so I still needed like a few more months to do the next repetition just yet. But yeah, even though I said 2 things, that the interval grow very quick, a lot quicker than in Anki, especially the very first one already is the most dramatic difference. And then that the algorithm, even if when you lapse, it doesn't adjust enough. Not because you don't remember, you don't have this capacity to do it. It's because if you do more practices, like those 25 flashcards, you're prone to the ECL, to lapse until you get so short intervals that you can afford this bad practice. You can learn almost asemantically. And there's proof of that. And also it's proof that this is shit. That's why I don't even keep those elements in my collection. I think I have deleted the entire folder. Boom, and that's it. You won't get this in Anki. So, what happens is that I have a so big initial interval that I will fail. Most likely I will fail, because I'm using specific words I want to remember, because I want to use these words. So in my active vocabulary, and are kind of specific. It's not everyday conversation, these words. That's one thing. And the other is that I don't use stats that much. Next chapter, finally. Okay, about stats. Of course, in 2 months, I'm not going to rely on the stats, because they're still building. There's not enough data for that. So yeah, we detected that those item-wise and item level underperform, but collection-wise doesn't tell me much yet, just yet. Analytics, I meant. Okay. Oh, that's also not it. Still, outliers. Yeah. Now I have, it's better than the last time. I think here at 0 was shorter, at 14 days or even 11. But there are still outliers, even though I have 1000 repetitions. Because yeah, look at this, the maximum interval is what, 3 weeks? It's too tiny. But the point is, look, and I didn't fail. You remember I had the weekend off, then one day that I had off, and the other was missing. It's because what I did with the backup I didn't do this properly. That I back up the collection but not the other files, so there was a mismatch or whatever. Assuming that was the day, I did every single day. I used SuperMemo every single day. So I only missed 2 or 3, depending how you say it. How I know that? Because the item priority protection is 100%, and it's almost impossible at the beginning that there's a day that I don't have an item outstanding. This will be the opposite, by the way, of what I have in Anki. It will be 0, 0, 0, 0, nothing becoming due at all. Oh, now you have a few. 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. That's why I can wait days because nothing is becoming outstanding. And if it becomes outstanding, it's very mature and easy. So, work done. That's the time. Yeah, you can see that, hey, it's not 0. But look, it's close to 0. But yeah, better than anything. Here I started using this when I lost my job. So I had plenty of time every day. Keep in mind those are 3 hours that I recorded. Then I was doing the editing. That even though the quality of the editing was crap, I was using the Windows Movie Maker, not the one you have by default in Windows, but the older, from the Windows XP or whatever, the very ancient software that you had a very little precision. I use that software. I will try to get if I have a screenshot of this. So I spent my time, because it was an absolute noob, editing, and also the software was very limiting on top of that. So I was not just recording in the first month, I was not just recording the sessions, I was also editing the sessions slightly, and thoughts every day, the recaps, and also on the Discord community. I spent quite a lot of time there. So it was not a full-time job, but it was a rather decent amount of time. This is, by the way, this is what I can compare of what I did with the course. This could be analogous to the time I invested daily with the SuperMemo guide to SuperMemo. No kidding. No kidding. There will be some days that it's just YouTube things, titles, chapters, thumbnails like this, so I don't record or edit, but there's still something done. And then on weekends, boom, I spend 8, 12 hours that day. And during the day, during the week, depends on the load I have of the other jobs I do, but it will be like this, yeah. About 20 hours a week minimum. That's the time I don't invest myself in SuperMemo. So it looks like this on the right side. What's that? Time. What I'm looking for? That very little time, 2 minutes. Ah, okay, that's for repetitions. Okay. Outstanding. Okay. That's studying everything. Okay, at least I see it's going down and down. That's because I imported from Anki, and I have done some splits. I'm assuming those are the splits that you create 500 items or more, or the imports. And here it feels like I have deleted something. Not deleted, sorry. They have forgotten, sending to the pending queue or something like this. But here I see a trend that it was getting lower and lower. The thing, same for, what is that? Burden. As a consequence, the workload goes lower and lower. Is that I imported so many stuff. Imports. Now here I said so many. Okay, it's decent. It's 13,000. Okay. So what I imported from the web, all of these imports are from the web browser, is more than from Anki. And is the largest folder. As you can see, it's topic. So here, still, I was grouping. Here you can see I was still grouping, but not with concepts. That's why in the three-month milestone, I will realize, hey, these should have been concepts. And you also notice that I have some convention. What is in capital letters, in fact, is a concept, not a folder. As you can see, it's topic here or folder. It's one article. So basically, I could say this is the incremental link folder without any management in the knowledge tree. Everything put together. Almost. The vast majority is from Wikipedia, and as you can see, I have imported a lot of stuff. Yeah, 14,000 elements doesn't tell me much. You would have been better to know the members in the sources registry. So for instance, if I go to this collection, references registry, I have 8,830 references. This tells me much of the volume. Keep in mind, not necessarily everything are websites. Some images that I use Internet Explorer, they will also get the references. And some that I did myself. Like for instance, the videos from the sections of the course, they have, if I go here, let's say, they have a reference that I add manually. So it's not something I imported. But back then, with just 2 months, I could simplify. If that was on record, that number, and I could see it, it's very likely those equals to the articles I have imported. It's more than 1,000 articles. It's ridiculous what they have imported by now. Element count. Yeah, so you can see when I import, it grows super quick, and when it's more organic. That this grows because you just do extracts and glosolations, not because you are importing new information. This makes sense because I have imported here a lot of things, of stuff. And now, most likely, this slight increment is for the extracts I'm doing. Okay, so at least myself at 2 months was getting that. Okay, good to know. Memorized, more or less the same behavior. Memorized, more or less the same behavior. Nearly memorized, those are the imports. Easy. So those 3 peaks, 1,200, about 2,000, and about 3,000. Those are the imports, most likely. This could have been organic. 600, or a combination. You never know. Oh my god, I'm too quick.
Guille, me has asustado hasta a mí, gilipollas.
Memorized, more or less the same behavior. Yeah, continually memorized. It's messed. The scale is messed up because of this. Finally, that is the overload. I'm wondering, by default, you have a top response turned on, right, in your collection? Overload, I'm pretty glad. We have seen that before, yeah. Well, do you see, I only have 3, not 4. The pretty protection, so I only failed, I missed 3 times. And I don't know what was outstanding or whatever, it had 4 instead. That's why the backup I did, that with not all of the files of the collection, made the change. Let me see. So the point is, no, there were 3 already. I know, because it's the same, it's pretty protection. Work done. Okay. As you can see, or the yes. So the thing is that in the table, and that's pretty much it. Table. Let's see the forgetting. Okay, 1,000 repetitions. Yeah, way too many outliers that are 100%. But look at the size, minuscule. So, what does that mean? That it's not enough. 2 months of repetitions is not enough to have meaningful calibration of the algorithm. And that's pretty much it. I really don't. Oh my god. And that's pretty much it. And that's pretty much it. Okay. So this graph, now I have more than before. Okay. Way too soon still. 58 cases. I think last time I only had 1. Now I have 58. Okay, it's not an identical that I have one in isolation, but with 50, I don't do much else. Here the A is the same value, the B I don't remember, but it's the same as before more or less. If you remember, we have seen it already. What they have now is that those two are also flattened, so that when the expected forgetting index is less than 5, it's still flat. With my current collection, after 5 years. Here, after a month, it looks about the same. What's getting bigger is the 20 and 5. Perhaps some here are larger than the others, but you can see it's very flat. Really don't post these often. Distributions, there will be the memory lapses. I lapsed, remember, the 25 items in meanings, but yeah, the scale is so big to the thousands that it's very hard to appreciate. The point is that in Anki, at the first, when you're using Anki for the first time, you really want to look at the stats because you really want to fine-tune at the settings. Mainly, for instance, I was using different settings for learning Japanese, that learning the school stuff, because the deck settings is based on difficulty of the cats that they are in the deck. I was not using the decks for splitting content, like topics, like here. It's okay, statistics here, language here. No, I was always putting all in the same packets. That's why I was interleaving. Yep. Then, the priorities. So I have a... next chapter, priorities. Okay, good. That's a given. I have a priority bias. But usually when I import something, so let's pretend I want to... Okay, so now that I see it, sorry for the off topic, nothing to do with priorities. That from Anki I had Hangul and Kana. What I added is a periodic table, which I shortly deleted after. It was just one of the examples that in Anki you can do the note to card. So hey, I asked the element, I want to know the index number. If I have the number, I want to recall the name, then the group, and whatever else. Yes, now. So what I do is usually repeating the same number. So intervals of 11. So 11 to 22, 22 to 20 to 33, 44, 5. Yeah. So was this one easy heuristic to avoid round numbers? Yeah, well, I duplicate this, so it's multiple of 11, not 10. At least it's not a round number. It's one iteration. I don't do this anymore. I am a lot more precise than that. 55 and so on. I only reserve the last one, so the lowest priority, when I really not want to do it now, but I want to keep it in my collection for maybe in the future. Yeah, exactly. It has changed. If I import something that is on 100% priority, so the lowest, I don't import that. So what has changed is what they call the importability threshold. So it has to be higher than my folders, that all of the things that are just dismissed. That will be 100 and the next position at the bottom. So if I have 10,000, the 10,000 positions at the bottom of my priority queue. If I have 100,000, will be up to 90% priority. If I have, I don't know, 200,000, will be half of that, so 95% priority. That's why, if it doesn't deserve the priority, I don't import it. That's it. And that was key because one of the things we will see in my milestones is that my collection grew super quickly and has been a lot quicker than my expertise with priorities. So I ended up in a position that, hey, now it's chaotic, I don't get what I want, or what I get is always different. I don't see ever again what I have done one repetition because of the burden and the wrong prioritizations. And what I did is, let me split collection first, and then let me mass delete. And I know I deleted thousands, tens of thousands of topics that I never seen. It's something I imported, and it's there. We'll get to that point. And this helped me tremendously. So you want a collection size that you can manage. If you're an expert, then you can afford it. But at the beginning, if it grows too quick, you are in trouble. Or you are probably in trouble, or you are in trouble and you are neglecting this trouble until much later, and it will be even worse. That's why sometimes less is more. No? And 0 up to 10 when I really want this now. Really important. But the thing is that everything in my collection, it's among 30 to 50% priority. What things I need to get used to is okay. It's assessing the priority. Is okay. 31%, is that good enough for this? It's too high. It's too low. The absolute priority I'm referring to. Exactly. So for me, it's like the comparison technology of currency. So now I'm used to euros, which is slightly more expensive than the dollar. So if I see, I don't know, a coffee sold at €1 and 20 cents, I could argue, is that expensive? Is that cheap, or is that a fair price, right? Good analogy. I don't even remember doing this analogy. Yeah. Since you're used to the going rate and the currency, you can quickly assess, hey, that's above, it's too high or too low, right? And more or less for how much. By a little, it's in a stretch, or it's a massive overpriced. Then, if I have the same value in a different currency I'm not used to, in terms of 120, it will be 500 or 2,000. Is that a lot in that currency? I will need to convert to euros to get that, right? So this is what happened. That, hey, I'm not used to working on lower priorities like this, 30. Is this a good range? Is this what deserves this thing? So when it's very high, it's a lot easy. And if it's very low, it's also very easy. That I don't care if this is 100, 95, or 90. It will not make much of a difference in the practical sense. When it's at the bottom, because you keep moving those items, anyway, elements, because you creating new elements above them. So you're pushing and pushing them constantly as you keep using SuperMemo. So, no big deal. And when it's very high, it's easy. 0.5, 0.4, and you will see every day up to where you go. Oh, now I see the 2% priority. Then, since my collection is bigger, now I only see up to 0.5. So I can more or less calibrate those priorities, meaning I will see this tomorrow or not, or it will be likely we'll see it this week. You will adjust this unconsciously. But when it's pretty like 30 or 20, I don't know. I will need a lot more experience and time to realize this. Will I ever get this organically here? Will I ever get a priority progression of 31%? Or what I use with the sorting criteria, the fuzziness, it's enough that time to time I will get one of those priority ranges. It's a lot harder for that. To follow the same analogy is the distance of the planets. Oh yeah, this is in 400 billion light years. And this with kilometers will be in the quadrillion or quintillion or whatever that may be. I cannot appreciate this. Yeah, I know that 5 quintillion are more than 3 trillion, a lot more. But yeah, I cannot appreciate this difference. It's way above the scope of what I can comprehend, I can visualize as a human, right? More or less I was getting there. So the golden nugget is that the top and the bottom is the easiest to prioritize. If it was a sandwich, the bread is the easy. What's in the middle, the filling, is the main sauce, pun intended, is the difficult. That is first the tomato, the lettuce first, then the tomato, then the meat, and in the burger. This is what you need to prioritize well. It's really hard to see it at the beginning because 31.5 it's not the one I have set again because this has been lowered by the elements I have created. So it really takes, at least in my perspective, a great deal of experience. I don't even know, I think I would even adventure that in the year milestone I will still be in the same page as in the 2 months milestone in this regard. I can do the same with more expensive things, like rent or even a car. If I want to purchase a car, it's 20,000 euros expensive. That's super affordable, yeah. And you still, even if the number is greater, you can still assess, is that cheap for a car? And even for a home. Now, 500,000. Well, in this place and so on, you can assess if 500,000 is a good deal. But when you are into trillions and what is that? Euro, I lived in Spain, so we used peseta, which is very little. 1 euro equals to 166 pesetas, so it's very little. So, with time, you get used to assessing. Exactly, so I was used to talking thousands very easily. So a coffee that is 120, it will be close to 200 pesetas, something like that. So imagine. What I did is that my brain adjusted to a factor. So I just divided everything by one constant. But relatively, it's the same. What I changed is mentally the absolute number, the absolute priority number. It's 166 times less than before. But the relative is the same. 120 is more expensive than 105. And it's cheaper than 150, right? Super easy. Same thing that if we go with pesetas, 200 is more expensive than 190. Do you know what I mean? That's why when it's relative, I'm agnostic to the currency. It doesn't matter. Perhaps if it was, I don't know, Bitcoin, I will need to use a lot of decimals. 0.00005 or whatever. It won't be that useful or that easy to do the mental math. But I will still do, this is higher, this is lower, that's a good deal, that's expensive. You should change the priority because it's too high. This is what I'm leading to. That's why what I do is, at least personally, is relative priorities. I have this, I have that. Regardless of what I have in my collection, I have A and B. The B, you should be higher and lower than the A. That's it. That's the key factor. What is exactly? I don't care, and especially if it's very narrow, like from 29 to 31, I don't care, because if I set 29, in a few days, or eventually, it will become 31, because I will be adding more material on top. So the lower the priority, the less I care about the difference. I only care about the relative difference. If it's lower, it's all I need to do. So the higher the priority, the more I would worry about the absolute priority. Why? Because this will make the difference. Will I see this tomorrow? Will I see this week, this month, or never? So only through search. Then the absolute priority will make a difference. Hope it makes sense. For now, before I was setting 1%, 2%, and 3%. When I started with my auto hotkey script, I remember setting this. That doesn't mean 1%, it's 1 point something. I had some fuzziness with the script, but it was on the interval up to 3%. Then I know I can no longer do that, because if it's my highest priority is 3%, I'm not going to see this week, or perhaps not even this month, because of the absolute number. Even if relatively speaking, oh yeah, this is still true, this topic A is more important than this other one, so it should be above any of those other elements. It's true, it's not enough. My priority protection is too low for that. So if I want to see something next day or in a week, I will put 0.4, 0.3% priority, if this makes sense. Or I will need to spend 10 hours a day, every single day in SuperMemo for a while to get to that priority protection. But if I do that, what I will do? I will create extracts, I will do close deletions, and likely I will import other stuff. And some of the stuff could be in the high priority range. So it's a never-ending story. Never-ending. You cannot solve this problem. You always have to navigate in the ocean of priorities. You cannot have immunity to this. That I cannot be drawn to this ocean of priorities. No. You don't need to keep swimming, or you will drown. There's no immunity to that. And if you think, this is what you will see, that I will put out that effort, let me do subsets of the higher priority to finish everything else. Yeah, but later is oopsie doopsie. I have imported a few 14,000 other sources or whatever. It's a big deal. That's why that's not a good solution. It's like if you are sunk in moving, how you call it? Moving sand? Quicksand. The solution to go up, to quit, so to solve the problem. And you have the technique that you can actually go outside and not worry. But the analogy will be that you're in the quicksand and you still keep going with your feet, and you go and sink deeper, deeper and deeper. And the more you want to do, the deeper you will sink, because the most stuff you will import in your collection, the harder it will be to prioritize, the more elements you will have, and the more elements perhaps that have no meaningful priority, because you haven't revisited that ever. And it's also affecting the priorities of what you have set manually. That, hey, I have set this to 30%, but I have added a few thousand elements, then now this is in the 45 priority range. That's why prioritizing at every single action you do, not just at importing, is key. or it will become a chaos. That you could not navigate that chaos. It will not make sense at all. Let's keep going. That. So for me, more or less the periodicity, it's like this. So when I get more familiar with my own collection, is that, okay, let's keep going. So this one is 61, so it's kind of low. But now, the game theory, it's not my priority. I know, in fact, I know this already from other sources. But that's no dilemma, yeah. That's just the sig also. Parentheses. Oh, come on. Internal links. And this one is for the... Keep in mind here, I deleted everything here because it's a backup, remember this. I have a convention now for this. What I add is a comment, so I can go there through the comment registry and see which topics are see also sections from Wikipedia pages. And then this becomes with their own priority as well. Like, hey, I want to continue, incrementally continue the navigation once I'm done, or once I want to, even if I'm not done. Also, in this case will be tones. From Norwegian, I learned Norwegian for a while because I wanted to go to Norway for my PhD, which that didn't succeed at all. Then I no longer care about this or Danish or whatever. Then let me go to tone in linguistics. Because I said, hey, yeah, I know the Mandarin Chinese has tones, right? But then I realized, hey, wait, the Norwegian, you could phrase it that has two tones, which is the minimal to say that it has tones. If it will be only one, it will be always no difference in the tone, in the tonality, right? So hey, that's something I could crawling and then doing links. Hey, what did I learn about this? What I have that? Da, 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 da. So not delete this blindly as I'm doing here now. That's just the sig also. And sometimes if it's a weird name like this for me, I shift click to see the previewing in Wikipedia and then realize, okay, it's nothing I want to. References, usually I delete them. When it's like this, that it doesn't split, I will delete them. I don't split that that soon now, that frequent. So that is very rare to happen now. And I deleted the leftovers from the past. And basically the rule of thumb is, if it's Wikipedia, I will delete them, even if I know that some references I want to check. That's because this is always present in Wikipedia. And I can go backtrack any reference if it has been deleted. I could go to the same version I have, so I know I can always recover that. When, again, rule of thumb, when there are personal writings, articles that are prone to be forgotten, are prone to be deleted or inaccessible, then I keep them just in case until I fully go through all of the text, and then the references, okay, and then finally when there's nothing useful, then I delete. Well, I will apply done, and as a consequence I will delete. References, oh come on. And external links the same. I have the convention, not the see also, but similar, because usually I call it portals. That here is like I could say the modern implementation of a textbook. Links. And this one is 42, so it's just doing this, right? Whoops. It's out. You could hear my dog here in the recording. Oh my god. I did this back in the first time with Alp. Do you see? Forgetting index of 5. I was already playing A/B testing with a forgetting index. With Rush, but I don't do it that often. I usually do this when I think, oh, that's really interesting now. Let's say it's, I don't know, this mandibular nerve. I want to study it now. So I import it and I lower, or if it's already in my collection, I just lower, for instance, I increase the priority now, or I lower it. I don't want this now. But that's all I do. I don't do it constantly. And I think that's one of the issues with Anki users. In other words, I didn't have built the habit. It's part of the repetition. That doesn't mean you have to. Only when it's a meaningful difference of priorities, you will reset the priority. If it's more or less like this, you will just leave it, or do control shift up and down, that you only shift 0.1%. This is like the tiniest, so I'm not going to reassess the priority for less than 0.1% of priority, unless it's the very top of the priority. That also depends on the size of your collection. If now I have more than 250,000, well, I split the collection once again. So once I'm done with YouTube, doing SuperMemo, and I can join everything, because my reason to split this is for privacy reasons, or for policies of being safe of policies of YouTube, the graphic content I have. Once I merge this once again, and I have almost 300,000, that means that the very high priority range, I will need decimal points. The first decimal point is not enough. And the second decimal, so 0.05, will make a difference. That I see today, or I'll see next week, or from seeing this next week to a few months. So the higher your collection in number of elements, every element represents a tinier section, percentage of your queue, therefore you need more precision. It's just arithmetics. Meaning that if you had, 1 million elements, you will need a third decimal perhaps. But only for very high priorities. When you are in those 40 something, 1 decimal will be more than enough. That transition to SuperMemo, and is that this takes time. Yep, priority takes time, and it's key, because that's why if you start, that's what I always tell the tutorees, keep it easy. Don't worry, first understand the reasoning, why you should care, what are the long-term effects of the negative priorities and so on. Once you understand all of these and the heuristics that I shared in the course, how to decide this is higher priority than the other, what mental exercise you can do. When you're used to this, then it's just time, because as your collection will grow, you will rely more on priorities. And the more you rely on priorities, the more priorities you will set. The more often you will feel the need of assess a priority. So it's retrofitting this requirement. And eventually, this will become a habit, and you don't have to be triggered. That part of the repetition is to reassess the priority. So in the same manner that you may fix typos or reformulate a little with your words, making it shorter, more atomic, you will also modify the priority as part of that process. So you're not going to think, hey, let me think of the priority before I click on next, on learn. You're not going to think like this. It becomes automated. How long it takes? I don't know. Depends on the person, how much time you spend, how your collection grows will also take an effect. There are many variables. The key is that you take it incremental, super simple, high, mid, and low, and you make it more complex as you need to. Don't do it so ahead of time that is unnecessarily complex. If your collection is 2,000 elements large, there's no need to use 2 decimal points in your priorities. Basically because you cannot do it. Because let's say it's 42.5, the next will be 0.7 already. You don't have enough elements to have so many in between. Now, my collection is already huge. See, I have a massive overload. Huge for being 2 months old. Yeah. How many elements? Memorize total 18,800. That's quite a lot of information. More than 1,000 items. I mean articles. So, with such information overload, you really want to prioritize. Exactly what happened with those. Those topics have been imported from Wikipedia, and it's just this, haven't been processed. So in the time of import, if I don't say that hope is more important than loneliness, or what? It's chronological. So loneliness, if I don't put it higher than hope at the time of import, I'm only going to reassess this priority when I import again and I see it's duplicated and I check it out, or I do a search, or I go neural, or one of those things. But if I do my outstanding, I'm not going to see any of those, especially if they're in the 40% priority range. Okay. The only solution, I won't have enough time to read everything here. That's true. Imagine how much time should I need to read all of those Wikipedia pages. Perhaps not the entire thing, because perhaps I don't care about the history, the etymology, or if it's politics or whatever, or laws in different countries, that I only care about the country I live in my case, because what I will want to learn how you pay taxes in Japan, if I'm never going to live there, right? As some simple example. So not because it's there, I will just read it. That's what I mean. So imagine those few thousand articles, Wikipedia articles, then some books, I will need several. So if I stop everything, I freeze my collection, I will literally need years to process all of that. I'm not going to do it. And on this time, let's simplify, it's 2 years. There will be new information that I want to import. And based on what I read about, loneliness, then, hey, this sparks my interest in neuroscience, I will create and import more stuff. And then of what I want to memorize, I will create flashcards, extras and flashcards. So this is a never-ending process of priorities. That's why it's a big deal that the priorities starts from import. When you import, you really already need to assess the priority it deserves. And when you do closation or an extract, this already is the same thing, because by default you will inherit the priority. So if you have decided the priority before, you will be there. But if you didn't, what you inherit by closation or extracts are something arbitrary. So you make even things worse in the long term. So it's even bad, but you make it worse. So it worsens with time. Even if you didn't import anything, it will worsen. But if you still keep adding more stuff, it worsens in many different layers and quicker. To the point that it will become an absolute mess, an arbitrary collection. Almost the same thing as if you will use Anki or other software that you don't have the learning process. Or at least in 2 years or something. So the key factor here is to use priorities. Just simple as that. Then next thing, final reel. Oh yeah, I didn't comment that. I mean, I have the final reel activated. Oh yeah, it's on. I see here the quantity of elements, outstanding, but it's there, but I ever use it. And I activated here because I started with language learning and because, hey, I'm latching those flashcards. But again, to become full circle with this video of 2 months milestone, that is not the solution. The solution is not to do more repetitions that are actually not logged. So I see this more often. It's to do proper flashcards with, in this case, sentence items, not definitions. And just memorize dictionary definitions. That will be really tough to do. That's why the final drill, you don't need it. It's optional. If you use incremental reading alone, you don't need it ever. And even if you do some semantic learning, like phrasal verbs and stuff like this, it's still not worth it. So only on the case that you have exams. And before this date, you want an artificial very high repetition rate. That's it. There's no other reason than crying. It's not worth the extra time. You don't get any benefit. That is, deserves the time. And the time you do more repetitions on those elements that are unnecessary, it's time you don't rep new elements. I didn't commented that. So I think, oh my god, it's so messy. The issue here with the meanings that I feel so hard with so many lapses, like here, is that I never do the final drill. The thing is that I don't need it. I really don't need the final drill for my incremental reading. My retention is pretty good now. But the thing is that I will have to make this in English in a different collection, and in that collection be using the final drill. Because if I use... Oh, that's a solution you could do. So if you really needed this for an exam, that, hey, I really need to memorize not the words, the definition of the words, because it will happen in the exam, could be the case, I don't know. Then, yeah, in this very artificial case, I will have a different collection, so I can do the final drill of just that. Yes, you can still do it in a single collection, but there's no straight feature. So every day you will need to clean the drill queue, every single day, and take everything that is not from this branch, from the queue. There are many steps for that. It's not worth it. It's a lot easier, convenient to have a dedicated collection, and you just do the drill on that collection. Here, the final drill. I think I will get everything in the queue, and I will have to manually each day or a few days to modify the queue so I only get what I want. Every day, because the final drill doesn't just contain 2 days content, but up to 3 days. So every day this is modified, so you need to do this every single day on English, and don't touch incremental learning and so on. Okay, next topic is templates. I have done more templates. Now I have. Okay, so templates is quite extensive because each template has a use case. So I will leave for later. For now, I will react until here. Incrementally. Okay, so it's January 25th, next day, and I will continue with the last chapter, like a third of the video, about templates of my 2 months milestone with SuperMemo. Okay, next topic is templates. I have done more templates. I think that will be about my max. That 42 templates in my registry. I don't recall anything higher than that. Now I have 42. Before I say anything, first, I still don't have a meaningful name convention. And basically what I wanted is to replicate node types or card types in Anki back to SuperMemo with templates. And later I realized that I'm not changing anything, it's just the color. All of the functions are the same. The behavior is the same. And then I didn't care about putting the templates, setting the templates, because it's once I do import, I apply them in bulk, that's about it. So I do and forget about it. And I realized, it's adding a lot of friction when I add the template. There are other candidates to choose. And then it's when I develop the minimum template principle. But before the minimum template principle, I had to do an overkill of templates. AKA picture. I always have two versions, with picture and without. Yeah, you can see that, in this case it's article. Wait. It's just a picture. Do you see that the components are in the same place? Oh my god. Example of, I don't know if that was not included in the last video. No. But it's usually something, the conflict between Talent Drive and ToSchool. Now what they do is convention. I use a Unicode character for X with a square, so it's not a regular X, and that's about it. That's how I identify those elements. Easy. And here you can tell that the quality is crap when you have PNG, absolutely crap, and this is saved with objects. You save the template as objects, so you keep always the component pre-filled, and this is acting as a side effect, is acting like a peg, in the sense that when you go to the, let me actually do it, so it's easier to follow. Even though I no longer have it, oh my god, it's so slow, it's incredible. Basically, is if I search for all of the members of that registry, if I look and search for all of the users of this registry member, image registry member, I will see the other elements that use more or less the same kind of template. An example of. In this case, it becomes redundant because you already have the template anyways. But let me do it. Okay, so here's one example. I have this image, casuarina liter, I have 8 elements. So even if it's pre-added through the template, I can always get here, links, registry member, and then I see in the list, or I can do the browse, and I see all of the others. This element and this one is using it. Perhaps it's because it's the same article and has been inherited, like this case. Sometimes are different, absolutely unrelated elements that I reuse the same image, and then you get this perk. So basically, you can do this manually. So even if as a convention, so even if you don't do templates, you can still group those elements together through the image. Basically, I stopped doing that because the templates were a waste of time. In SuperMemo, it's not really worth it. Unless you really modify the behavior, it's not worth it. It's much quicker to have your conventions written, and that's about it. Since I cannot do whatever I want to, or what I did in Anki anyways, because of the absurd limitation of HTML support, CSS support, and any standard support, I just went plain text. And if I want this meaningful semantic linking, I will do the image component for that. What? Of word networks. And I'm also using the color coding in the background. Same, for instance, the one that's the one we saw last time in the, the same milestone, but some other chapter ago. showed before. This color, the goldish color, it's for meaning. I have the version without spelling. Yeah, and do you see? Meaning and spelling are 20. There are 25 users. The same users, basically, are all of. It's not shown now. But here, inside English, then a child, meaning that I lapsed almost every single one of them. You have them here. I also have. For instance, plural. I asked the plural for a convention. You can see that it's just a background color. A convention. It's just one character at the beginning that tells. Well, I have both. I'm saying, hey, what it is plural, meaning I will ask the singular, most likely, or not necessarily. And the other is, I'm asking for the plural. Whatever there it follows, I want the plural form of something. That's how I do it. So I'm either describing its plural as a hint or a requirement, or I'm asking for a plural. And it will be the same for singular, stands for, like NASA. NASA stands for what? This kind of thing. Because the perk I discovered is that, I can group together those elements quickly through the registry. But then I realized, if I have a convention through the search, I get the same result anyways. And I don't have to manually add templates and stuff like this. And the more conventions I have, the more templates I will need as a consequence. And to be more specified, API sound cue, because it's only on the question, not on the answer. Oh my god. Like true or false, true false false, true false true. You can tell that I was already overkilling this flow. Feel free if you really want that. Feel free to use it. Just to let you know that you will have a lot of maintenance that in the long term is not worth. You will spend more time than the time you save. So if you do it, it's because you really want different layouts with the components, different colors, and that's about it. Form of a word, for instance, fungi, which is not that obvious, at least for a non-native speaker. And that's built in. That's built in. You can see I have 0 users. Code, that's just something that I wanted to do. Some of the time I just did just very few, and it didn't succeed. So, because something I realized is that sometimes I want to share a quote, but I don't remember exactly the wording or like this, or most importantly, I don't know the author or to whom is attributed, because sometimes the author is not known and is falsely attributed to someone. And I wanted to remember that. So it's not, I'm not asking what it is about, what it means. It's no, who said this kind of thing. Quote, I did that, I think, For instance, everything that is really great and inspiring is created by the individual who can labor in freedom. Who said that? I don't know, but labor in freedom. Let me search this in the collection. Okay, one hit. Oh, Einstein. Okay. I will not have said that. There are quite a lot that are attributed to him, with no proof, by the way. So that's exactly how I do it. So it's a kind of a queue in Unicode, but not a regular queue. So it is unique. I type this in without a hotkey. So sometimes I just do like this, and that inputs the queue, or with semicolon. Something that is quite unusual for English. You won't do semicolon and something else without a space. So the input is usually quite safe, because I use AutoHotkey scripts. There's a video for that. No worries, we'll get there eventually in the series of the reaction. So basically, this acts as a template. So I just look for this, and now I have 18. I had more than at the beginning, at the course. At the video, I only had one member. Now I have 18. Sorry, 12? What I said 18? Okay, no worries. A personal freedom, oh, John Holt. And sometimes it's part of the quotation, so it's not necessarily who. And here you can see another convention, because sometimes I add conventions later, so until I don't see that again, I'm not going to update it, unless I can do find and replace. But find and replace, it's very limited, because I don't have regex, real expressions, so most of the time I cannot do it. That means it's a person. In this case, it's Simon and so on. Simon, for instance, could be a name, not a last name necessarily. But sometimes, especially if they are foreign, it doesn't sound like a name at all. And that's how I signal. Because then, if I want to check whatever it's about him, I will just do the plain search, plain text. As easy as that. Now, just to show you one example without him. Okay. You see Popper. Okay. I think I will have more than one. Then if I search for him, here you go, I have 5. So then I know that are part of flashcards, part of questions that he's mentioned. So it's about his theory, the interpretation of reality, the active part of discovery, and so on. Not those examples, because that is another case I did A/B testing with AI, but you get already the meaning of what I do. So the overall message is already done. That is, there's no need to do this. If you use conventions, you can just go plain text. Because SuperMemo doesn't have many features. So I cannot link easily something else. I cannot create concepts on the text. Has to be a linked concept, but that is just to the element. So I don't know if it's the question, the answer, whatever it is. It's so let's say limited, and I know it's not going to get updated anytime, or if ever. That's why I'm sorry. I will do the basics to get some meaningful usage of the neural review, and that's about it. Everything else will be plain text, much quicker. And it's safe, because if anytime I export my collection through XML, the text is there. So all of my conventions are there. So I could regenerate everything in a different software. I search for that, and then I will create the links or whatever that is. As long as you have conventions, you can do that. That's why I'm safe. What I don't like is that not everything is up to date, because again, most of the time I cannot do find and replace. Or I will do it, but with a lot of false positives. That's the opposite. I showed the plural form, and I have to recall the singular. Yes, but not necessarily. Sometimes it's like, fungus, fungi. So I just ask for the plural directly. Sometimes no. I just have a sentence with a blank, and hey, the word that you need here is plural. But I'm not giving you the singular form, necessarily. Mitochondria. So the thing is that, okay, and I only have this. So you have mitochondria, mitochondrion. Chondria. But then, this is more explicit, but then in a sentence, like criterion, it will be more plain English. Oh, in SuperMemo you can do this, da, 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 da. So the actual answer will be, I don't know, the priority criterion, to say one. Then it's part of the answer, criterion, because it's just one. That I want all of them, the mercy criteria, then I use the plural. So, if it's language level and happen that I only closed this word, then I will signal, hey, I want a singular form. It's the plural. In mitochondrial, it's the singular. But meaning that if the if the item was for incremental reading, not a language item, and the answer is, so the question would be, what criteria you should use in Mercy if you want to prioritize what you have worked on more in the days, I don't know, this year, that is January. So you want to prioritize what I have done in those last 3 weeks, right? Oh, then I need to prioritize the recency criterion. So imagine that instead of the recency criterion, I say the recency criteria. I will still rate it as good, as success, because the mistake I did is in a language level, not in a SuperMemo level. Then I will, if I have the flash for that, I will search for that and lapse it, because I don't want to wait until this becomes outstanding and I do the rep, which will be much later than the date of outstanding. If it's high priority enough, I will search for it and lapse it manually. For the repetition and lapse it. If it's not high priority, I will just, okay, good to know, but I'm not going to spend the time for that, if this makes sense. The fun fact is that the plural form in English, it's the same as the singular form in Spanish. Yeah, and that sometimes what I do, those flashcards, are just to reinforce false friends. Like this, that, oh, in English, the plural, in my native language, is the singular. It's just without H, so the H is not there. But, oh my God, so when my brain will map this as singular in my brain. But in English, it's the plural. These kind of things. That's why there's no context. So only known that I'm asking for the singular, it's enough. This already tells me implicitly it's a language item. If I don't specify the language, which is the 3 with the medal emoji, if I don't specify the language with a character, which is a number 3 with 2 circles, I know it's English. That's why sometimes the conventions, the more you use conventions, the more implicit you can be. And sometimes you give more information but not using them, which is paradoxical, that I give you more hints but not telling anything explicitly. It's just beautiful. So without the H, and again, you will see the precise details later on. That's why I'm not doing it now in my collection. But it's mitochondria. It's singular in Spanish. So this is an interference, and that's why I'm using this card. This template stands for. I'm using this for acronyms that are not bad. I want to memorize them because are recurrent, but the frequency is too low that I will keep forgetting them. It's such a bad example because this acronym is actually stands for a list. It's not like national, that's something that you can, a proper noun, it's just a list. Not the best example of the feature, but you know what I mean. Oh, what NATO means, right? I heard NATO a lot of times in the news, but what does it stands for? Stuff like this. Or USB. You know for sure what is the USB cable, but it's what? Universal what? Universal serial bus or whatever. That's the example. One theory called DSRP, what it stands for. Distinction, systems, relationship, and perspectives. Basically, I was trying so hard to replicate Anki. Because in Anki, I had those backgrounds, and the font was huge, like this. But the difference is that in Anki, I didn't have components. So I could type text that was part of the template, not in any field of the card, or should I say note. and I relied heavily on that feature that is not here. That's why after a while, I don't know, we will see how much, I just desisted and okay. First, it's not worth it. Second, there's something else that is more powerful and quicker to do. And third, later, is that I no longer want it. It was just a habit, basically. And also using the color coding, true or false being false. Those, to be honest, I did that because Fool's Guide to SuperMemo, and I wanted to replicate those. That at least you can answer by clicking an element, and then you need to have both, because one is said that the correct is a good, the true is good, and the other the false is good. But yeah, you also tell the answer by just a template name as a consequence. But later I realized that no, that breaks the flow because I'm forced to use the mouse. And since I have built already a flow with keyboard, not worth it. I prefer to read myself manually via key anyways. The right choice. Transliteration. I already had this, I only applied the color. And that's it. Whip. APA is the phonetic reading. And APA A? IPA. Q. The difference is that by Q I mean question. And the difference is that I have the sound. Then, if you notice here, even if I have some degree of convention, not necessarily, but at least I'm descriptive, that if there's picture, I add the picture, so on. What's not optimized is for spelling. That if I do Ctrl-Shift-M and I start typing in the name of the registry member, it's not optimized. Because if I do, I don't know, E, okay, I have an example of picture. Good. So with or without, right? But then, for instance, with M, I will have to put the E to do meaning. Because multiple choice or those is very likely to use it. But you know what I mean? S, singular, sound, spelling stands for. That means I will need to type more keys or to use the arrow key with multiple times. Because if I press S, I go to singular. I know I want the spelling. Oh no, I want the stands for. Nah. So sometimes how I name the template registry member is having this in mind. So the first letter is almost unique. And if you have 26, you can guarantee uniqueness. So you literally only need to press one key. And that will pre-select the template registry member. And second, you need picture within a space in order to work. If you want this behavior with concepts, you want to apply a similar template that is the same name but with picture, this will not work. That's how we have it here. Should be like capital. Is the same name, white space, picture. It's hard-coded. It has to be like this, or it won't work. Now we don't have examples because it's for the Chinese Mandarin deck. I still haven't converted fully, so it's not. I'll do this later on in my main collection still. And I think that's pretty much it. Yeah. And I mean, I will have a lot of templates like this. shared as a paid extra for the course. But to go beyond, perhaps for the fluency that will be enough, a little more. That you can have question and answer sideways, not just vertically. Some different layouts for 4K resolution, other resolutions in the middle, whatever. But you can do more stuff, but it's very advanced because you will need to create scripts and something that really justifies template for that. But this is very obscure, and only a very few people will ever use it. So what you have seen here is more or less the same, with the difference that perhaps some components will be more stretched or less, or the image components will be in different parts of the screen, but it's like this. A lot of component types you're not going to use ever. Finally, is that now my collection. How can I see? Next. Oh, sorry. I thought that it was just one chapter. There's a second chapter, collection size. Okay. So that's what I was looking for. The collection size. The name is because it's about an old compact disc, 650 megabytes. Is that much? Oh, I had already 3,000 vacant storage slots. Now I have like 500,000, because every time I have exported and re-imported, so they say split and merged the English collection or English items, and created a huge amount of vacants. Yeah, basically the collection is small, to be honest, are just the images, the built up. So this could be more or less the same as Obsidian, let's say, but still more storage, because instead of plain text with markdown conventions, you have HTML, which is a lot more verbose. So you are not going to see this, but because this has a color and this has a link, the text is actually longer than what you see. What happens is that a lot of stuff in SuperMemo, it's designed because in its time, in the 90s, that was a huge deal. I remember using a computer with my father, that the entire hard disk was 400 megabytes. When it was formatted, even less. So you could not even start this collection in an entire hard disk drive. That was the thing. So back then, it was really expensive and limited. So the storage was very strict. But now, the only limitation is that if you want to use the Git backup solution, especially for free, you may hit 1 gigabyte limit. If you use GitHub, then you can use GitLab, for instance, I think it's 10 gigabytes. But then it will be the text registry that gets above 100 megabytes. As a single file, that is our limit. This may happen. So I want to say that before I say anything, because I will be interested of what I actually say about this. If I say, oh, that's a lot, because if I compare this with Anki, that's close to nothing. I recovered from a backup back in the day. So the storage is not that much because I haven't imported almost anything from Anki still. And I use a secondary storage, by the way. One of the things, for instance, that is not even mentioned in the fluency cycle, but I have used it. You will see later on in later milestones, especially when I used local video, that I was using secondary storage, because I went to the gigabytes already, and hundreds of thousands of sound files. It doesn't say how many files there are, but I can tell this. Yep. Oh my god. That was really close to finish the PhD already. Quitting the PhD. Yeah, 20,000 files. So the thing is, it's not the weight. File size. By weight, I mean file size. A mistake from translating to Spanish. There's a huge load of files. And that is what happens. basically SuperMemo has many files that are very tiny. So what you have in the disk usually is more than that. Because if the file is just, I don't know, 600 bytes, yeah, it will still store it as 8 kilobytes, depending on how you do this in your hard disk. That's why sometimes you get, in this case it's not much, but in some other times I get almost double the size. And then it contains a lot of files. That is why when you use the default backup solution, it's painfully slow, because I will need to copy 20,000 files. And that is nothing. This is just from two months of usage. Now I have more than tenfold this. So imagine, that means that whatever duration it had, let's put, I don't know, a minute to do a full backup. It lasted a minute to do this, which will be kind of quick. No, now I need tenfold, so more than 10 minutes to do the backup, which prevent me to use SuperMemo, right? And if I just do a zip of what I did, instead of properties, I will have selected make a zip, 30 seconds, finished. It's much quicker. But the longer your collection, especially not in size, but in quantity of files, the more dramatic the difference, that it is like 60 times slower or stuff like this. Is how many little files there are. That when I zip this file, I send it over to this computer, and I unzip it. Yeah, and also in consideration. So even if you stop importing, for instance, what you see in the screen, those are two files already. This question is in HTML. Therefore, it will be a registry in the text, registry, twice, as plain language and as HTML as seen as plain language, and then the file, the HTML file in the systems folder. And the question usually is more plain text, but sometimes like this, I can already see that it's a hyperlink. That means this is also a file. So now if I tell you that in my genuine collection I have about 100,000 items, not all of them have close deletions, but the ones that have close deletions are guaranteed to be HTML. How many files do I have only with items? So what I mean is that even if you don't import much, just by keep using SuperMemo, if you create an extract, another HTML, that will be deleted eventually. But a lot of topics will be left outstanding. That means the HTML file will be always present in your collection until you don't delete, put set done, and it will also increase because of the items. So even if you import very little, not like 2,000 articles like I did, you will be getting those numbers. That you have 10,000 flashcards, you will have 20,000, not guaranteed, but most likely in your collection. That's why very easy, my message is that you will go to the tens of thousands even if you don't want to, unless you use plain text, like the Advanced English Collection. If the Advanced English Collection, if you don't add the sound and the images, you will get the plain text. This will be a lot lower. I think that took almost 8 minutes or 10 minutes. That's why, in the long term, Git backup solution. It's a no-brainer. No-brainer. And this collection is very tiny. Very, very tiny. Mm-hmm. If I compare this with what I have in Anki, with almost 500,000 media files of audio and pictures, it will take forever if that. Yeah, in that case, roughly I had 500,000. I exceeded that. But basically, there's no registry. That means that sometimes I may have duplicates, or should we say, unnecessary duplicates. So I generated sometimes I have real audio, so it's genuine, it will be just another human. But if it's TTS, text to speech that I generated preemptively, sometimes it's the same, but I use a different service or different voice, so they are seen as different files in the folders. So they're not duplicates because they have different names. The hash is different, but they say the same and the voice is very similar. And perhaps then I realized that with this, I caught like 30,000 duplicates. That it was the same sentence spoken with a different, very similar AI. That's why having a registry with Anki leads to this. And second, even if it's genuine, that I did manually, I want to learn to say banana in Korean. Let's say, I'm not going to check in my collection if I have banana, if I have used an image, then go to the source code, HTML view, and see the name of the file I used. And then, let me use this and copy it in my new flashcard. It's a lot easier that I just get a new image about banana when I had already images of bananas, right? That's why I generated more media files, because of the lack of registries. And since I use it very assiduously, very, very much, like crazy, I have used it more intensely than SuperMemo. The amount of time I have used it. Not in longevity, which is true as well, but the intensity. More than 3,000. Back when I started using SuperMemo, I clocked more than 3,200 hours in my main profile, because I had multiple. So imagine, only the recall time, by the way. That's why I ended up, I don't even remember because I deleted hundreds of thousands of sounds. But I remember it was more in the 40 gigabytes of media files only. Yeah. It was so easy to do, by the way. It was 500,000 files. It won't be like this because I won't be importing that much, and because a lot of files are text-to-speech generated. So at the end of the day, I really don't need them. But I will need at least 200,000, something like that. That will be a pain to copy each and single time. Yeah, what I did one time, let me see if I have it here. Yeah. I used this. Like a hard drive, but it's smaller than usual. So it's like a memory card, I think. It was painfully slow. Like it needed, no kidding, more than 24 hours to copy those files to that, just as a backup if anything happens. So the access time or whatever was so low. Yeah, I think it will be memory card. It behaves like this. It was, I don't know, I did everything. So my entire collection and my English collection back then, that was huge. That took more than 1 day. It interrupted. So I could have done the backup as a zip and then just transfer the zip, and it would have been dramatically faster. Just basically limited through the connection, the interface. There was the USB 2. So 640 megabits, I think it's the limit. A massive deal. So my final thoughts is that one very, very bonus thing to the SuperMemo actually is the community behind this. Okay. Something I said that we'll emphasize and so on. There was no chapter for this. Final thoughts. Okay, I didn't call it anything specific. Good to know that after 2 months, I still say that. Nice. And especially the Discord. They are so active, and they are not the average user, the most active users. They don't focus on input, they also do output. Yeah, something key. That was a golden nugget. Because if you focus on Anki communities, without going to the things that you may think I'm doing. No, is that everyone is focusing on input. Because most of the user base, they are students, they use it for cramming, exams, they focus on input. And when I see, hey, wait, you're using a special petition for output. Hey, that's a paradigm I didn't explore in 11 years. Oh, so you're writing a novel yourself, and you use a special petition for your novel. So you have everything fresh. What you decided with the main characters, and so on. Because I remember, for instance, Akira Toriyama with Dragon Ball, that lasted, 11 years? It was very long. That the author himself forgot about some characters. That, hey, why this character doesn't appear anymore? Or stuff like this. Or why this behavior? Because he forgot some events in the past. To the degree that he forgot some characters he created himself. Because it's one chapter per week, then it becomes years, and if you don't have repetition, you will forget that. Makes sense. But this is an example that, hey, you can use a special petition to avoid this. So you have everything like this, even if this character development happened 5 seasons ago. That's why in the community I noticed that it's not just one guy, that at least the most active. We're also having input, of course, but having output. When I mean output, is not output for yourself, which could be a thing in SuperMemo for incremental reading. We are going to do incremental writing, but you can still do incremental writing for yourself as an exercise as a learning exercise. You will get there in the mastery track if I ever have time for this. So you do writing as a sort of verifying you have the big picture, you can link this, you have a understanding deep enough that you can, for instance, if I want to fully understand what the bicotonery is, I could describe it in a way that I don't say the powerhouse. So I verified that I didn't memorize the wording, but semantically memorize what it is, right? You can do that. Or you can also write, but for others. So you have a blog that you share with other people, which was a thing. Most of the users back then were sharing this, or perhaps a podcast. So it was not written necessarily, but was through conversations. And still, it's a different form of output. Or tweets. So it doesn't have to be that dense and elaborated, just some tweets here and there. That was a key factor that in the Anki community, most of the people, I just want input, get things done, get us a certificate, an exam, or whatever, and that's about it. Or languages. But that you will do output of the languages, yes, but transformative. So speaking or being fluent in that language, not on explaining what you do or the theory, what you work for that, and stuff like this. So they used their knowledge. I was hooked by surprise because after 11 years, I was not expecting this. And that is also proof of the massive limitations, not of Anki, but of any software that is only flashcards with a special petition. All of my pain points was because I was being a victim of information overflow. So I have a lot of software to keep up and track what I have done, what I have read, where am I, what is left. But then is the lack of prioritization, or the prioritization being so limited, so heuristically, is when I was, I cannot keep up with this. And it's when I started, hey, let me try SuperMemo out, even if it's proprietary software. That was such a big pain that went beyond my ethics. That no, it has to be open source and free software. Free as in freedom. I was very hardcore. I don't even have Ubuntu. It was too much. No, you can because you could install proprietary drivers of the graphic card, stuff like this. I use the GNU Sense distro, one of the most hardcore in this philosophy of free software. So imagine so hardcore I was that even when I was in college or university, I had some appointment that I had to use a Windows only app. I didn't. I tried to use something open source and then convert it. And sometimes it messed up. And then I failed some delivery just because of this. Because the conversion was crap and was not able to be processed correctly, failed. So even if I know I could gamble a technical failure, no, I don't want to use Windows. Not even for half an hour. It's against my ethics. I'm spending time just so you realize how hardcore it was. That no proprietary software in my life. So you had to be so huge that then it's okay, I'm so desperate that okay, Windows only, and even that proprietary on top of that. I mention this because if you watch my channel, I'm always using Linux. But I had more than a decade that I didn't use Linux at all. I'm using Windows in all of my videos. That's why it may give you the impression that I'm just an average Windows user. But I had more than a decade that I never touched Windows or Mac. So it was a really big deal. And they shared their knowledge to help pals. So that will be all for today. Oh wow, I thought you had more. You know, that's an example, but by the intonation, it sounds like I wanted to see something else, and then I abruptly finish. So now I can modulate this more in English. So just by the intonation, you know if I am closing a chapter or closing the video at some degree. As I just did now, kind of. Then nothing more to add for this milestone. Let me quickly review. Oh yeah. I had comments here. Nice. I almost forgot about this. I'm Brazilian. My material is 99% in PDF. How to incremental reading in addition to control. Yeah. So basically the assistant. Did you keep learning language in SuperMemo? Yes, but later. I have this separate. Instead of separate, I would have said segregated. That hey, Japanese is in Anki. The others are higher degree of freedom, especially English. And English I did both. So what was very mature has been kept in Anki. Whatever else new I was creating was in SuperMemo. I would love to have all of these in one single app. Yeah, so do I. But it's not a big deal. Then, after 2 months, can you find any effectiveness in using the software for your revisions? Do you review daily? Those are like 5 questions into one. Let's see what they said. I do review daily. It's about creating items. You can see the retention rate, percentage. It's about that. The difference is that I have never used SuperMemo for school stuff. I did for the MBA. Yeah, I actually enrolled for the MBA just to use SuperMemo for it. At this degree, I have a video on that. But then I realized, hey, since there are no exams, I only need to pass the assignments. I stopped using SuperMemo. And I just went the other way around. Let me see the assignments, and through the assignments, let me see what I need to check. And with the help of AI, I will get what I need, and boom, here you go. Because I also tried to cheat, and I got caught cheating using AI. So basically, I use SuperMemo for anything I wanted to, not for curriculum or anything. But then, if I answer these questions today, do you find any effectiveness of using the software for your revisions? Absolutely, because of priorities. Only with this, Anki is just not worth your existence. If you didn't spend time to create very advanced nodes and cards, or very mature, or very mature, that you could put that aside, no need to use Anki at all. No need to. Do you read daily? That depends on how you interpret the questions. Let's say that if I use SuperMemo, I will do my repetitions. But usually review, I think implies items. Sometimes no, because my time is limited, that I have 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and I just do reading. I do this. Therefore, seriously speaking, I didn't review. I didn't do any repetition, item repetition. Do you work cards daily? I don't know. That's not a thing. It's not a metric that is useful. Depends. Perhaps I do extracts. Add cards will be to make resolutions. Depends on what I read. The repetitions I do. Do flashcards every single day doesn't make sense as a metric because it's not Anki, basically. What is your percentage of learning data and it's getting enjoyable? Percentage of learning data. I think he means memorized. Could be. Against what? If it will be the English collection, it will make sense. Yeah, I don't understand much the question. Do you presently have difficulty remembering why you said it? Okay. Doesn't help. At least, yes, it's getting enjoyable. For sure, after 2 months, I still didn't get the maximum enjoyability, to say that. And percentage of learned data. So my best answer today is that this cannot be answered in SuperMemo. There's no such thing as percentage of learned data. Memorized, and the memorized doesn't tell you much because that doesn't mean I have learned less. Because the more I learn, the more I will apply done. So the more folders I will have. Then the fewer memorized elements in my collection. For instance, now I don't know. When it's a split, I have more than 27,000 folders. I know because I have done this for a video a few months ago. I remember the 27. So imagine this. That doesn't mean that I'm learning less. The opposite. I'm putting things to done more. It will make sense if it was a pre-done collection, like the Advanced English. Then, did you previously have difficulty remembering and why you did decide to use this software? Well, at some degree, I will say that, mention that I didn't try SuperMemo for the algorithm. Back in the day when I did it 6 years ago, there was a massive difference because there was no FSRS. So I always said that for me is a welcomed extra, but it was not the reason. Not I moved, that I even wanted to try SuperMemo out. It was just, I didn't know back then. Today I can tell you priorities. But how I will phrase it back then would be to sort and to schedule my reading material, my learning material, basically. So not just the priorities, but having the content on the same place. So incremental reading at the end of the day. Do you think you actually learn faster? Yes, because of using incremental reading. Not because of SuperMemo. So it's not the app, it's the method or the paradigm I'm using. Dramatically faster. Because I have the content already there, I can modify it incrementally, directly. There's a lot of freedom, and I create a flashcard right there. I don't need to have different apps, track this, did that. I have this pending to read with sections. Oh, I need to read linearly as a consequence. So it's not just faster, it's that I get what I need faster. So meaning that if I have an article, I will get most of the value first, and then the missing returns, and most of the finishing returns are not going to get them. They are perpetually waiting for me. So I learn most of what I want dramatically faster, and generally speaking, I learn faster as a speed because of how incremental learning works. I memorize better, therefore I need fewer repetitions, so I spend less time. And this less time I spend is time you can spend learning something new. And there's still more replies. Oh, let's see what I did. What he said. I didn't have any special issues remembering stuff. Yeah, in the sense that I used Anki for a while, more than a decade, and I had good strategies. Not bulletproof, so I was still carrying some biases that I realized with SuperMemo. You noticed, you already know some A/B testing that I already mentioned in this video or prior videos in this series. But I was already knowledgeable of this. I just wanted to do the A/B testing. Hey, it's just the algorithm enough to improve this. You have seen, no, it's not the case. I was letting the cards anyways. I want to try everything out. I think the point is that one doesn't learn faster, but forget exactly. Okay, so that's a more grammatical perspective. So I don't learn faster in the items per minute, per year, or whatever measure you want to use. It's that because I forget less, you spend more time learning, less time relearning, so you spend this time on something that is new. Something that is more obvious to grasp will be running, right? Or walking. No. I don't walk faster. I go at the same speed. Let's say, I don't know, something very mundane, like 2 miles per hour. Nothing fancy. Pam, 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 pam. Hey, how you come you reach further distances? Oh, it's because I'm more efficient. So every time that I want to drink, I have to go to the starting point or close to the starting point. Hey, in SuperMemo, because of incrementalism, I have stops. I can irritate, drink, or whatever. So at the maximum, perhaps, I have to go back, let's say, 100 meters. Yards, to keep if I say miles, let's keep the same departure system. So I don't lose much as going back, as forgetting and relearning. I still do it, obviously, but the price I pay is just a fraction. Therefore, even though I keep walking at 2 miles per second, I go further because I have forgotten less, not because I walk at 7 miles per minute. Hope it's easier to understand. Next, thank you for your work. Some questions. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. I adjusted those two, okay. I wanted to uncollapse. I have an issue with the plague. Okay. That explains the function of each button. It doesn't appear when I hover over the mouse. I need how to. Okay, the hints UI. And the plague, I think he means the tooltip. Because this guy, I think, speaks a Roman language. There will be a little translation of one of the meanings. Here you go, yeah, the hints. This time was when I started with Norwegian. That was like short-lived. Next and last. Sir, like you moved from Anki to SuperMemo, I have made a large number of Anki notes, cards as well. How you import Anki notes to SuperMemo, is there a way to do this? Yes. There was one shared by the community, which I didn't like that much. This is one, precisely. Because of the knowledge tree, the titles were actually messed up. Feel free to use it if it doesn't create any friction. Then, there were some limitations of the media files. Now I don't remember, not just the occlusion. And the scheduling was not there. So I did my, later on, and again, I have videos on that. I think I waited at least 1 year or two to do this. And I do it just as an exercise. That, hey, it's possible to do, no, but not because I want to. So later I didn't keep anything in SuperMemo about that. So that's my answer today. At least I got more comments, but not recent. So it has been 5 years out. All of the comments are 5 years. So eventually the first days of the videos, I imagine. And for next year, 4 years ago. Yeah. I mentioned this because sometimes, I think it's not the case of this one, let me check. Still. So you see, after a few hundred and something days, then I kept getting, that will be a year. That is the number of the views. You have to check this number here. 360 something, let's say here. Yeah, 1 year. Here you go. 259. So I still got 100 something views across the years, and one sent a comment. Even though that's not a big deal, because the first one had more than 1,000, it has been more constant, well, kind of, until 3 years ish, and then it's a flat line. Okay, but from the few days until 3 years, it was constant, getting views, and no comments. No comments at all. That's why it's weird. Keep getting views, but none of those views mention anything for years. Okay, so then I had covered everything finally about the 2 months milestone of using SuperMemo and why I didn't quit SuperMemo. Hope has been useful, some insights in this video. See you incrementally.